what is harder? Building up a successful clothing brand like you have with BADR, or spending time in prison?
It's a very tough question. You've asked me for. I'd say building a clothing brand, if I'm honest. I feel like with being in prison, for me, it was, you know, at the time that I went in, even though I was doing all the cage fighting and I was young, and the time that I spent in there, I feel like I would never have changed that. Do you get me? I would never have changed the past that I went through, because it's made me the person that I am today, and I'm proud of the man that I am. And I feel like that time was a time that I was needed, because if I didn't go to prison, I was potentially going to end up dead. And I could have ended up in prison for murder, or I could have ended up being a victim of murder and being dead. So for me, I went to prison and I come out a better person, yeah? And that time for me is a good time, and it was a fun time, and it wasn't necessarily hard. The only thing that was hard for me was time away from my family, feeling like I'm losing my life a little bit in terms of being locked away and wasting. But in terms of the clothing brand now, it's a proper challenge, because, you know, I didn't have great education in school, so I've had to come and learn on the job, and building a brand, you know, it's been fun, don't get me wrong, but you're entering into a competitive space, and to be able to do what we've done over the past 6 years with BADR is amazing. And, you know, we've developed one of the biggest brands in the UK in terms of brand awareness, and it's been very challenging. It's been full of ups and downs. It's been testing. It's been I've been through more in these 6 years, a lot more testing, mentally testing situations with the business than I ever did when I was in jail for the 4.5 years. So I'd definitely say building a brand.
I think that's something that a lot of young guys kind of, they hear people like you talk about it, and myself, of like dark moments in your life, as dark as it sounds, going to prison and spending 4 years away, is like, they're the moments that shape us into the men that we become. So it's like, mine's slightly different because it was an option choice, but I chose to sleep on the floor and then live in the gym to train and not have an income and anything like that. It's a very different situation. But to most people, if you said you want to go sleep on the floor and train MMA every day,
of course,
they wouldn't want to do it. But for me, that's the simplest and best time of my life. And when I look back at it now, like the no pressure, I had an absolute focus and understanding of what I had to achieve, and that was become a better fighter.
Yeah.
So that then blossomed and made me become the man I did. So with prison, for you, like you said, it almost silenced you and took away the dangers that you could have had on the outside world, right?
Most definitely. I feel like, you know, even though I'm not here to glorify prison, because if I'm honest, it's the worst place in the world for young men, especially, to go to. I feel like it's a wasted time, and for me, because of what I was involved in, because I was heavily immersed in gang activity and there was murders and shootings. The only reason why I'd say it was a situation I wouldn't change is the fact, like I said already, I could have been dead. Do you understand? So that's the only reason I wouldn't change it, because God knows who I could have been. I could have been UFC world champion, but I was training at Wolfslayer, Mike Bisping, Rampage Jackson at this time. And I was a prospect. I was defeating other prospects. I had tough fights from my first pro fights, but I feel like if I didn't go to prison, how intense the gang war at the time was, I could potentially have ended up dead, like I said.
So you started at mixed martial arts before prison? Yeah,
so I started mixed martial arts at the age of 18. So my uncle Anthony started, and to be fair with you, I started it as a bit of self-defense, because I knew I was involved in gang wars, and I wanted to fight, wanted to protect myself and be able to be, you know, a solid member of my team at the time, you know, a part of the gang. So training for me at the age of 18 was more about that, and that's when I started.
I think that's, because how old are you now?
I'm 37.
Yeah, so this is like a while back, nearly 20 years, and you started, and then back then the sport was a completely different place, and like you said, you did it because you wanted to be a strong member of your team, and so you wanted to know how to fight aggressively as well. But now the sport has completely changed in those 20 years.
Of course.
And you missed 4 years of that development because of going away or going inside. You think, how do you compare those days, going to a gym, like you said, you went to the Wolfslayer. People don't know the Wolfslayer, it's a very, very famous gym here in the UK where a lot of prospects or big stars came from, UFC champion Michael Bisping. Then now walking into, say, Manchester top team now, like what's the difference in approach? How would you look at it?
I feel like the gym back then, the energy was different. You know, it was a lot rawer. You know, the kids, we were in there, we were really trying to, we were as happy. I can just talk from my experience. Wolfslayer was all about having walls, but still developing your skills, but becoming a real fighter and becoming a real man and being tested on a regular day-to-day basis, heavily tested. And for me, I feel like now the game's kind of developed and it's more from a technical standpoint that people are approaching the game from, which is fine, I understand it. But it's just a different energy from when we were younger. It was just more raw and just getting in there and asserting your dominance every day and being tested every day as well. And it was a real challenge, but I loved every second of it.
Do you think that's good for the youth now, or like the way that it's approached now as a sport? Because for me, again, I started around the same time. I started when I was 18. Yeah. I'm a couple of years younger than you, so you would have been 20 by this time.
Yeah.
So it's like I started when I was 18, and I only people that I don't want to say like really wanted to, but also were a bit messed up, like got involved in martial arts back then. It wasn't like no one was saying, "Oh yeah, I just train at my local MMA gym." It was like no one knew what it was. Yeah. It didn't exist. So it was only like.
No one knew who it was. Them times there was no one. When I was saying I was doing MMA, people didn't even know what it was. People used to say, right, you do that UFC? Do you get what I'm saying? People just be like, right, do you do that UFC? It's like, nah, I'm doing MMA. No one had a clue who it was, and this is why, like, what am I now? You're talking close to 20 years ago. It's close to 20 years ago, Luke, that I started. And I'm still here, bro. Still here, still competing. All right, you know, my last fight didn't go my way, but you know, I was in there. I nearly destroyed him, and I'm still here at a very high level. Still at the age of 37, still got fighting me now. Still feel like I could go now.
And you think that's what I mean? I feel like the fighters walking in the gym now, like to be able to be 20 years on or 19 years on and still have the fire for that competition and to do that. Do you think that there's the same athletes or same men walking into gyms now to try and be like that? They have the same fire inside them. You're still training at Manchester top team?
Well, I'm mixing up at the moment.
Mixing up. So like, when you walk in, you see the young lads coming in now. The same 18. I mean, 18 now is late to start. I mean,
yeah, of course it is.
It's far off. But you see the young lads coming in. They what's in their eyes compared to back then?
You know what? To be fair with you, and it's not even to take nothing of it. It's selective. I can see in certain people. You know, certain people I can feel energies, and I know that certain fighters mimic similar energies that I had. Remind me of certain energies that I had when I was that age. So I'd still think it's down to the person themselves, the fighters themselves, and the environment that they're being raised in. You know, it's all about the culture that the coach creates as well, the coaching team and the coaching staff, the energy, the type of people that the coaches select. Do you get what I'm saying? You need to make sure you're selecting the right type of fighters to come into your gym, because you could have a great fighter, but he might not bring the right energy to the gym.